we present Bernard Horsfall as Harry Lawson and Geoffrey Banks as Professor von Hardwig in A Journey to the Center of the Earth. The novel by Jules Verne, adapted for radio in 8 parts by Howard Jones. Part 1, The Great Discovery.
Looking back to all that has happened to me since that eventful day, I can scarcely believe in the reality of my adventures. They were truly so wonderful that even now I am bewildered when I think of them. But first I must introduce myself. My name is Harry Lawson. I'm English. My uncle, Professor von Hardwig, is German. He married my mother's sister, an Englishwoman. At the time I am speaking of, he was a man of about 50. Tall, thin, and wiry, with spectacles and big protruding eyes. Being fond of me, he had invited me to study under him at his house in the Königstrasse in Hamburg, and this delighted me, for although impetuous and eccentric, my uncle is a scholarly and wealthy man, a professor of philosophy, chemistry, geology, mineralogy, and many other ologies. Also, although it has nothing to do with my story, I was in love with his goddaughter, Gretchen. Well, one day, my uncle returned from a solitary walk in a tearing hurry, flung back the front door, and shouted at the top of his voice, "Harry! Harry! Where are you, Harry?" "Coming, Uncle, coming. What's all the excitement?"
"Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Harry! This book I have just bought.
Looks pretty old. What is it?"
Heimskringla of Snorri Sturluson, the celebrated Icelandic author of the 12th century. It is a true and correct account of the Norwegian princess who reigned in Iceland.
Dear me, what language is it written in, Uncle?
It is a runic manuscript, the language of the original population of Iceland, invented, so the tradition says, by Odin himself.
I was about to venture some misplaced joke on the subject when a small scrap of parchment fell from the leaves of the book. It was about 5 inches by 3, and scrawled over in the most extraordinary fashion. Like a hungry man snatching at a morsel of bread, the professor seized it, told me to sit down and write.
Are you ready?
Yes, Uncle.
And follow closely. I will substitute a letter of our alphabet for that of the runic on the parchment, and we will see what that produces. Now, begin, and make no mistakes. MRRLS ESRULKEDII. That will do, Harry. This puts me in mind of a cryptograph. Unless the letters have been written down without any meaning. But why do that? Who knows, I may be on the verge of some great discovery.
Uncle, I scarcely think.
It seems likely that this parchment was written by some owner of the book. Perhaps he wrote his name in the book. Now, what is this on the flyleaf? Is it a blot of ink or...
No Saknussemm.
No Saknussemm. The name of a learned Icelandic professor of the 16th century, a celebrated alchemist. At one time, he was the owner of this book. He wrote his name here. These alchemists, Avicenna, Bacon, Lully, Paracelsus, they were the only learned men of their day. They made astonishing discoveries. My boy, may not this Saknussemm have hidden on this piece of parchment the secret of some astounding discovery?
Possibly, but why conceal it if it was a useful and worthy discovery?
Oh, did not Galileo make a secret of his discoveries in connection with the planet Saturn? But we shall see. So, until I discover the meaning of this sentence written by Saknussemm, I will neither eat nor sleep.
My dear Uncle.
And neither will you. This man Saknussemm was very learned. And, like most learned men of the 16th century, he probably wrote in Latin. If my guess is wrong, why then we must try Spanish, French, Italian, Greek, yes, or even Hebrew. However, my opinion is decidedly in favor of Latin. We shall probably find that the words are arranged to some mathematical plan. Perhaps one figure is the key to this whole puzzle. Now, Harry, show your English wit. What is that figure?
I haven't the faintest idea.
Then let us pick out letters at regular intervals. Here, Harry, take up your pen and start to write. M-M-E-S-S-U-N-K-A.
When I was done, I could scarcely keep from laughing. I had written down 4 lines of complete nonsense, so it seemed to me. On the other hand, my uncle...
No! What does it mean? What does it mean? Well, it won't defeat me. It won't. I will find out. That I will.
Left to myself, I lit my pipe and dropped into an armchair. I could easily imagine my uncle tearing along some lonely road, gesticulating, talking to himself, cutting the air with his cane, still thinking of the absurd hieroglyphics. Would he hit on some clue and come home in a better mood? I picked up the wretched puzzle and tried every imaginable way of grouping the letters. I put them together by 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s, all in vain. I pondered and pondered. It was enough to drive a man mad. Mechanically, I took up the piece of parchment and fanned myself with it, so that I saw first the front and then the back. Imagine my astonishment when, glancing at the back, the ink having penetrated the parchment, I clearly made out Latin words. Craterem terrestri. It came upon me in a flash. This was the clue. I had discovered the secret. All you had to do was to read the document backwards. The ingenious theories of the professor were correct, and I, by sheer accident, had discovered what he wanted to know. I placed the parchment on the table. I passed my finger over each letter. I spoke it through. I read it out, and suddenly, I felt as if I had received a knockout blow. Was it possible that a man had really accomplished this incredible thing? That a man had dared? Never, I cried, never shall my uncle learn this secret. He's quite capable of repeating this fearful journey. Nothing will stop him, nothing. What's more, he'll insist I go with him. I snatched up book and parchment and was about to fling them into the fire when the door opened and my uncle came in. I had scarcely time to put the wretched things down before he was at my side. He dropped into his chair and began to make some algebraical calculations. I knew he was wasting his time. I had discovered the clue, and I intended to keep it to myself. I did not dare to leave him, and at last I fell asleep on the sofa. When I awoke, it was morning, and my uncle was still at work. His red-rimmed eyes, his tousled hair, and flushed cheeks told me what he was feeling. It made me ill to look at him. So I looked the other way, crossed my arms, and smoked, resolved never to betray the secret. When the cook wanted to go out to market, she found the front door locked and the key taken away. Did Professor Hardwick intend the old woman and myself to starve to death, martyrs of his obstinacy? He continued counting and writing and counting, thinking of neither food nor drink. "12 o'clock. I was famished. There was nothing in the house. 2 o'clock. I could not bring myself to keep silent any longer. "Uncle," I said, but he didn't hear me. "Professor Hardwick."
How did you speak?
Uncle, I had already made an important discovery.
Do you have some idea of the meaning of this call? You, Harry?
Yes, Uncle. Look at the sentence you dictated to me.
I'm looking. It means nothing.
Nothing if you read from left to right, but if you read from right to left.
Backwards. Oh, backwards. Most cunning Saknussemm. What a blockhead I am. In Neffels Joculis Craterem Chem Delibat. Dog Latin, of course. The meaning of the whole passage in English is descend into the crater of Yokul of Sneffels, which the shade of Scartaris caresses before the talons of July, audacious traveler, and you will reach the center of the earth. I did it. Arne Saknussemm. Oh, wonderful. What is the time? The time, I say.
About 3 o'clock.
Then let me have something to eat and then get my portmanteau ready.
What for, Uncle?
Your own portmanteau, too. We start at once.
Where are we going?
Going? Who do you think? We are going to follow in the steps of Arne Saknussemm.
That night, after dinner, my uncle called me up to his study. We each took a chair on opposite sides of the table. It struck me that he was in a particularly good humor.
Harry, you have rendered me a service never to be forgotten. Without you, this wonderful discovery would never have been made. It is my duty, therefore, to insist on you sharing the glory.
Glory, Uncle?
True glory. But I must warn you, you must keep the whole affair a profound secret. There is no more envious a race of men than scientific discoverers. At all events, we shall be first in the field.
I doubt if you'll have many competitors.
A true scientist would jump at the chance. If this document were once made public, we should find a perfect stream of pilgrims on the tracks of Arne Saknussemm.
But isn't this parchment likely to be a hoax?
No, Harry. The book in which we found it is sufficient proof itself of its authenticity.
Well, I'll admit Saknussemm may have written the lines, but he was probably just trying to mystify people. And what's all this about yokel and snivels and Scartaris? I've never heard of them.
That's the very point I'm coming to. Not long ago, I received a map from my friend Augustus Petermann of Leipzig. Put down the third atlas from the second shelf. Series Z, plate 4.
Oh, very well. Series Z, plate 4. Is this the one you mean?
Yes. Now, it is one of the finest maps of Iceland. It will settle all your doubts, difficulties, and objections. The whole island, you see, is composed of volcanoes. And note carefully, they all bear the name of Jökull. It's an Icelandic word. It means a glacier. Most of the high mountains, volcanoes, erupt from ice-bound caverns.
But what does the word Sneffels mean?
Follow my finger to the western coast. And there you see Reykjavik, the capital. Follow the direction of one of its innumerable fjords, and what you see below the 56th degree of latitude.
A peninsula, like a thigh bone in shape.
And in the center of it,
a mountain.
That is Sneffels. Sneffels, a mountain 5,000 feet high, one of the most remarkable in the whole island, and destined to become the most celebrated in the world. For through its crater, we shall reach the center of the earth.
Impossible.
Why impossible?
Because the crater is choked with lava and burning rocks.
And if it be extinct?
Yeah, that would certainly make a difference, I grant you.
It certainly would. There are about 300 volcanoes on the whole surface of the globe, but the greater number are extinct. Of these, Sneffels is only one. It has not erupted since the year 1219.
Oh, very well, Uncle, but why all this mystery about Scartaris and the calends of July?
Why, this shows how particular Saknussemm is in his directions. The Sneffels mountain has many craters. He is careful to indicate the exact crater, which is the high road to the center of the earth. He tells us that about the end of the month of June, the shadow of nearby Mount Scartaris falls upon this one crater. There's no doubt about the matter.
Let's suppose that Saknussemm is right. He found the entrance to the bowels of the earth, but it's madness to suppose that he or anyone else ever followed up this discovery.
Why so?
It's well known that heat increases 1 degree for every 70 feet you descend into the earth. This gives you a fine idea of the heat at the center. It's so hot that all matter must be in a state of incandescence.
I care nothing for such theory.
So hot that rocks must be molten. What would become of us?
Do not be alarmed at the heat, my boy.
My dear uncle.
Neither you nor anybody else knows anything about the real state of the Earth's interior. The only way to learn is, like Arne Saknussemm, to go and see.
Oh, very well, we go and see. Though how we shall see in the pitch darkness is another mystery.
Oh, fear nothing. We shall overcome this and many more difficulties. And remember, not one word to a living soul. Our success depends on secrecy and dispatch. We shall leave for Copenhagen, the first stage of our journey, at daybreak the day after tomorrow. Courage!